My name is Mark Monlux, and you're watching another episode of Epic Sketch Time. I'm a freelance illustrator here in Tacoma, Washington, and if you check out my link below, you'll see that I do cartoon reviews of movies. And with me today are gentlemen. Introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Bill Morse. I'm a freelance illustrator and cartoonist working out of Seattle, Washington. And I do a webcomic called Rhapsodies.
My name is Pat McCuen. I draw a webcomic called The Devil and Mr. Gandhi. You can read it at devilandgandhi.com.
Okay.
Sorry about stepping away like that. I was trying to find. I have a couple of manga albums from a few decades ago, and they were going to be perfect for a query that I was going to put out to you guys. What's the name of the application that used to be called Manga Studio and has since been the name's changed?
Clip Studio Paint.
Do either one of you have any experience applying the duotone filters that are inside that application?
I've clicked. I confess the only time I've done it is by brushing over the button of it a few times because it's right next to the button that turns everything into blue screen.
How about you, Patrick?
I'm not sure. I use occasional tone layers, and I have dabbled with like doing like watercolor wash brushes with the tone layers to like build up darker and darker tones using, you know, like a 25% round tone, but I'm still learning as I go, essentially.
The reason I ask is we actually had a query from somebody. They heard that first they wanted to know, does Clip Studio provide a library of duotones similar to those used by professional manga artists? For those of you who don't know, a duotone is basically a clear sheet with some printed pattern on it, usually a grayscale fade, or there might be a texture fade, or some special line art. And in Japanese manga, it's not uncommon to have sheets of those used and applied and cut out, or for there to be pressed on versions where you burnish it on and then erase parts of it with an X-Acto knife to get this a texture or a fade out that you just really want. So I heard that Manga Studio had this, and so I was kind of curious if we could give a quick tutorial about that, but since neither one of you do that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as layers, I know that they have a very extensive texture folder. I mean...
Okay, so why don't you show us where that's located, Bill?
Okay, just a second. So anyway, look, are everybody looking at my screen here? So here, I'll just start a new page to make it easier. So color. So for example, here.
When you do this, give a voice step-by-step command of where you're going in the menu.
Okay, sorry. So right now I went to the side toolbox here where I have opened up the toolbox that marked all materials, which gives me a access to color patterns, monochrome, manga materials, which is borders and stuff, image materials, and 3D models. So here I am on the monochrome levels. And I have no idea whether I'm using them correctly or not. And so I'm at the moment I'm just dragging and dropping it onto the screen like so. And there's a nice whole duotone. I don't know if this, and you have this nice tool here to adjust the directions of the directions and the thickness of the gradient here. I'm sure other people could describe this a lot better. I'm completely guessing here, but does that help at all?
Well, it does tell where it's located. It does let them know that there are some.
How many, in that library, how many textures would you say there are?
Oh. I'm quite a few. I know it sounds stupid just to say a lot at the moment, but it definitely seems like more than 100 at the moment. I mean, here's a few more traditional ones. And then if there aren't enough for people, then there's also Clip Studio Paint has a very extensive store where anything that you might want is I warn everybody that sometimes the studio that is selling it to stateside isn't quite as good with translating everything as I would like. So sometimes when you're importing from this store, it's a very good idea to not all of the labeling is in English, so it's a very good idea to translate it on Google and then repaste the labels. But I hope that was here.
Can I hog the? Can I present for a minute or two?
Certainly. Probably do a better job than I can there. Go ahead.
Let's see. How do I... Let's see if I can get back here for a second. I forget how to do the present to all, but maybe
it's on the side corner. But you're sort of doing it now, aren't you?
I may be. I don't know.
I'm looking.
Well, let me just take you quickly through, and I'll continue to try to keep the screen on my page here. So here's another way that you can kind of bring up these an open Clip Studio file here. I'm actually going to go up to the layer drop-down menu, and I'm going to click on New Layer. And instead of going a raster layer or a vector layer, I'm actually going to go to this layer drop-down, New Layer, and then Tone. And you can pick. So here's like, for whatever reason, it's half. So 32.5. I don't know if that's the number of lines per inch, I guess. I don't know. Control, you can pick whether it's circle, whether it's square, whether it's lozenge. And gives you quite a options here. Star, caret. So I'm just going to go with circle here. And I don't know if 32.5 will work here, but so I've just added the tone layer, okay? Now I'm going to Control Z out of here. I'm going to, I think I saw an episode of Epic Sketch Time, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm just going to I've created a new layer. Why is it not? Okay. So I've got a new layer here. I've just put a single dot. I've used my magic wand to select the image, the dot that I just put down. I'm going to, and then with that little dot selected there, I'm going to do the same thing I did last time, 32.5. That's fine. And now I think I can. What did I do here? Let me erase the dot layer. Now, if I click back on the tone layer, I can now select the brush of my choice, and I'll just use a hairpin sable here with a 40 with nib, and you can now, as if you're bringing it onto the screen, you can put that size dot wherever you're brushing. Now you can also, let me see if this works. Yeah, so if you change it to a different kind of brush, like this is using a grease pencil, now put it on in a more splotchy way, basically, so you can play with how you're adding the tone. I've also done it previously.
So this is you manipulating mask here.
Yeah, I forget the steps of it. Obviously, you can erase any of those too. You could have either kind of plenty of anti-aliasing and put kind of a softer edge on it. I've also done, so this was a this, and I kind of forget how I did this. So let me go back onto my tone layer. But there is a way that you can use like watercolor brushes, and it's not even putting it on there for some reason because I'm using something different. Okay. Yeah, so I'm on this layer. I'm on layer. And when I use a watercolor brush, there's a way that you can actually gently touch your stylus to get these type of dots. And then if you go over it again, it'll actually increase the density, which I think is pretty cool. And that's how I got to some of these darker tones, by just kind of keep going over it. And if you did like a multiplier watercolor brush, like a wash buildup or a wash buildup multiply here, you can dark very quickly. Obviously, the softer you go on the stylus, the less pressure. But in that one, you can really, very quickly build up some tone depth. Pretty cool. So again, it's something that I've done in the past. There do seem to be not only preset options, but also kind of like little workarounds, and playing with it. I think I could learn it better and be able to share more of it. But I do like being able to use what they have available right now.
Thank you, Patrick. I think that'll answer her question.
I'll run upstairs and get an actual tone piece of, I don't know if it's cellulose or just a vinyl. I actually have one or two sheets, physical sheets, that I don't really use, but I like having them just in reserve. They're kind of like an artifact of a different.
Yeah, I never got the hang of them.
I used to use them all the time, both the rub-on and the acetate film ones. More of the acetate film ones that you would cut and then peel and then apply. Now, Art Chantry, who just look up his name on Google. Art Chantry did a lot of rock posters during the grunge era and became sort of like the designer for the whole grunge movement. And he has this great style that he doesn't illustrate things, he told me, is that he puts collages together, but he would take rub-on lettering, put rub-on lettering onto a piece of Xerox paper, wad it up, uncrackle it, peel some of it off with a X-Acto knife, Xerox it, take that Xerox, crinkle that up, and Xerox it again, just to get a really nice warty texture with edges, so it wouldn't look crisp and clean. And he loved doing that to his pieces. Matter of fact, I have.
This may sound totally.
I actually have a couple of his prints in the other room. I'm going to switch over from my screen share. If I can get my button to work. And I'll go show these to you. Art's work has been shown in the Louvre, and the Smithsonian Institute has a permanent collection of his. So, and every now and then when he wants to get a little extra money, he'll put some of his prints up for sale on his Facebook page. So you just go there and show him. So this is one of my favorites. And as you can see from the details, he's taken the artwork, Xeroxed it up, Xeroxed it down, just totally destroying the detail. but it gives this gorgeous layout. He doesn't do that all the time. Here's another one of his pieces. Isn't that great? All of these were silk screened.
Very fun.
Look really closely, you can see this that warty texture on the moon. And there are bits of it on that robot. Here's a piece that uses a lot of the mezzotint. Oh, pardon me, duotones. If you, oh, my camera is really awful here, but if you look really closely, you can see that those strokes are done with the duotone dots, which it had to be because this was a silkscreen run, and I think it's consisting of 1, 2, 3. This is a 5-color run. We've got black, green, yellow, and pink, and the bright orange. So anyway, there's a plug for Art Chantry. Check out his Facebook page, look in his photos, and check out more of his work.
I'm continuing the show and tell here. Here are some Maxon comic texts. The instructions are all in Japanese.
Oh.
But one is similar to the pattern that Bill was showing earlier. I'm not sure if I can get it looking correctly with the glare.
I think I've seen those for sale at Kinokuniya's.
But they're kind of fun. And I think when I got them, I'm like, is this it? Is this what I paid money for? I'm like, wow. You really have to be I don't know. You have to be very sparing with how much you use of it.
I remember back in the day having dozens of those sheets in my office.
Could you get them on like a roll, or were they typically on smaller sheets?
I've only ever seen them in the sheets.
I've only seen them on the sheets as well. So as you guys can see, I'm once again working on the ever notorious Mac and Me. Why? Image. Yeah. This has to be one of the worst ET knockoffs ever produced. This is what it looks like on the screen.
Oh. I've seen the cover of the video. I've never risked it, though.
You're doing fine without, Bill. It's truly horrible. Horrible.
I mean, from a tech spec, is that just a hand puppet or a bad costume?
It's a little bit of both. There were all of these characters could walk around, and the adults were obviously at some points um, skinny people in costumes. But oh my god, it was absolutely horrendous.
The worst, yeah, it's funny. It's after a while you get almost to be a connoisseur of bad effects. At the moment, the worst one I've seen, which I saw being shown at Scarecrow a few months ago, it was all about, I didn't catch the name, but it was all about these tiny little dinosaurs, and they all looked like pretty simplistic rod puppets.
I just got through last Friday watching a wonderful 80s horror film that didn't take itself seriously in the least. It was called Dolls, and was pretty much what you would expect.
Was that the one you posted on Facebook today?
Did I post Dolls on Facebook?
One that had what looked like dolls on Facebook.
Since it was the last movie, yeah, I would say that it either popped up today or I might have posted it earlier this weekend.
I mean, there was what looked like a Barbie doll on the sixth panel, I thought. Though that could have been a highly stylized blonde woman.
Oh, you might be talking about Russ Cowgill's poster that he did for the event.
No, this was definitely one of your Cartoon Critic pages.
No, the comic critic I posted for today was called You Can't Take It With You, which was a Frank Capra film.
Oh, I think I've heard about it. I only ever was familiar with the play and the sitcom starring Harry Morgan. Is it from the same source?
The play, yes. I can't speak to the TV show.
I mean, I don't know anything about the play. All I ever remember about it was a piece of Al Hirschfield art.
I do recall that it was adapted from a play.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as I said, all I know about it is the Hirschfield art of it, and I assumed it was a comedy.
Yeah, it's a comedy.
Mm-hmm. And I only ever saw one episode of the Henry Morgan series. It was all about, it involved Harry Morgan's character trying to pay back taxes by giving the government a toilet seat. Because of the running gag at the time about how much the Army would pay for them. Nor was that the Navy.
I'm trying to remember what movie it was where they explained why an ashtray for the Navy cost $200.
I mean, I always heard there was a, I don't know about a movie, but there was a West Wing episode where apparently which I didn't see, where apparently a officer was either defending it or explaining it.
Yeah, that was it. It was on West Wing, where the ashtrays were designed for a specific type of glass so that when the ashtray would fall to the floor, rather than shattering, it would break into 3 large pieces. And if you're wondering why don't they just outlaw smoking on the bridge, my brother Randy, who was on board a submarine where it was completely forbidden to smoke cigarettes, if you're 30 or 68 days underwater without going up and not seeing the sky, you get yourself underneath a vent and you relieve some stress from, smoking a cigarette or two. So people tend to look the other way, and if it's part of the culture, it's kind of hard to break out of it, I guess.
Mm. I never took up the habit, so I wouldn't know.
Oh, who was that?
Hmm?
Was that who sneezed?
That was me.
So the mere thought of cigarette smoking.
No, that was just a coincidence.
You're not contagious, Bill, because I don't want to catch what you got with the Google Hangout,
I'm sure Pennsylvania plague system will do all it wants to on its own.
So, Pat, did you see Russ's Facebook page today?
No, what did I miss?
Well, the reason why he's not here, last night his dog died.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, I have no knowledge other than, dog. His wife posted something on Instagram this morning. It looked like a little Chihuahua type dog.
That's a shame. So we have like people competing on who has the most horrible excuse for not being at Epic Sketch Time. Locke is dealing with what I can only imagine is either some kind of attack, right?
Well, the at the moment while obviously it's clearly tragic, the government is denying it being anything more than some crazy driver.
Mm.
Though, admittedly, that was just me scanning my feed.
Well, we don't expect you to pull out your journalism degree, Bill.
That is fortunate.
Rather than watching movies this weekend, it turned out that Comcast in our area was allowing people to basically binge watch all the pay-for shows over the weekend, trying to get them to buy into the program, as it were, by Sunday night when the new series started. So I was watching as much of Westworld as I could, and my wife and we managed to get through all the most recent season of Game of Thrones, so we're all caught up there.
Oh, cool. So you hadn't watched Westworld before?
No, and I'm only about 4 episodes in.
At the moment, I quite liked it. It was very nice to see. It was very nice to see. It sort of was very much what I always am hoping for when I have one of my rants about there really should be more adult science fiction out there. Oh, yeah, well, adult science fiction in media. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of it for books and all. And so the stuff that they were talking about with the nature of AI and all that was, and selfhood was quite fascinating. And I was mostly pretty pleased with it.
Have you seen all of season 1 and 2, or what's or have?
I've seen all of 1. I was not aware that 2 was out yet.
Oh, so I think they're just starting to.
Uh-huh.
What about you, Patrick? What were you watching this weekend?
What did I watch this weekend? That's a good question. My wife and I have been catching up on some TV that we record. We started watching the second season of Legion, which is the FX kind of Marvel Universe TV show.
Oh yes, I've heard good things about that one.
It's quite enjoyable.
Though there's a lot of talk about what the state of Marvel TV shows is going to be now that Disney has gotten everything back.
Right.
For example, I'm told that New Mutants, which they were advertising for the 17th or so, has been put on hold indefinitely. I mean, I'm pretty sure Deadpool is still on schedule.
Deadpool the series?
Deadpool the movie. Oh, sorry.
The third one or the second one?
Second one. I was not aware of a third.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious because I thought the second one was so in the can that there was no way they could possibly hold it back at this point.
Everything I've heard makes it sound like it's still coming out on schedule. I'm still seeing plenty of advertisements, but I'm not so far. Let's see when.
So, Bill, did you get through your double feature?
I still am watching. I was a little behind, so I'm watching the rest of 13th Warrior tonight. So far, it's looking good. And I'm hoping that my knowledge of the book that it's based on is not going to affect my opinion of it. I mean, the book is pretty good, but I would not call it Crichton's best.
What is everyone working on today? Or did you guys already talk about that when I was out of the room?
No. Since I was kind of behind schedule today, I'm cranking out some stock art for the strip.
I'm working on a button design.
But let's see.
So at Russ's print sold pretty well at the show on Friday night. You can see his print on his website or at the, or pardon me, on his Facebook page. Sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were saying?
Oh, I was also saying that the other movie that on my list, the Valhalla Rising, was also very good.
Was that the one with, oh, what's his name?
Mads Mikkelsen?
No, big Hollywood actor, superstar, Mission Impossible series,
Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise.
No.
No, you're thinking of Valkyrie, the Kill Hitler movie that he was in.
That's the one I'm thinking of. My apologies.
Yeah, I mean, Mads Mikkelsen, while is getting a much deserved growing reputation stateside, it's still hardly call him one of the Hollywood rock stars just yet. As far as anybody who knows him for Hollywood roles, it's either for Hannibal and being the villain in Doctor Strange.
Sorry,
That sounded like a growl.
my instruments were not doing what I wanted them to do.
So who is the kid with the book?
Oh yeah, I meant to again. I get very easily distracted here on Epic Sketch Time. So I can announce too that it's a very small show, but it should be very fun. I'm tabling at this thing called the Havertown Kids Comic Fest in Havertown, Pennsylvania, and Devil and Gandhi will not really be making an appearance because they're a little bit too much PG and PG-13, to be quite honest. So I'm bringing in some of my all ages stuff, and this is the main character of a larger project that I'm working on. And this character's name is oddly, conveniently enough, the character's name is Shakespeare. And today being the birthday and death day of William Shakespeare, it's very appropriate. And Shakespeare is a time traveler, and she kind of protects history in a similar fashion as, if you recall, the TV show Quantum Leap. You might compare it to.
Ah, so does she pop into people's bodies then?
No, she does not.
So it's more like Voyagers then.
Oh, Voyagers, yes, exactly. And so a couple of things that I'll be taking. I plan on doing bringing some prints. Here's a print of the same character.
Ah.
That I'll be taking.
Oh, cool.
And she's part of a kind of government project, and so I'm going to be giving out these ID badges to whatever kid wants them, and they can put their photograph and sign it, and they can be a special agent in the Historical Defense Agency. And then on the back, I've got Shakespeare makes another appearance there, telling young people how to perform as a special agent in the Historical Defense Agency. So I'm hoping, as a freebie, I think it looks pretty cool. I had them printed as a postcard, and then I just cut the postcard in half with a paper trimmer.
I one time did a detective kit that had a passport in it, and in the passport you would put the photo underneath a piece of mylar, and you could draw on the mylar or use any of the stickers that came with hats, and glasses, and mustaches to put on top of the photograph.
Very cool.
So we were talking about the amount of latitude artists are given today. So I'll tell you about this project where latitude was not given, and that was on that particular project. It was the Wiley & Son PI Detective Kit. Or pardon me, no, it was the Wiley PI Detective Kit. And it had this bear on the cover, who was his name was Wiley. And that was sort of like the mascot for the toy company. And Wiley appeared on everything. So they had this detective kit, had a telescope to see over fences. It had the decoder rings so that you would line up so you could write secret messages. It had secret message hiding pens. It had the passport for your spy, and it was just all in all a great toy. I did all the wraparound packaging for it. I was very proud. I was waiting for it to go out so I could show it to all my friends. And but they went and applied for trademark. Not copyright, but trademark. And trademark, the way trademark works, in the most simplified sense of the word, is it's a club. And everybody who's already in the club gets to vote on whether or not you are in the club as well. And they have to vote yes or no. If you have a single no vote, you don't get in. So Wiley & Sons, the publishing outfit, contested their trademark saying, hey, we've got the name Wiley & Sons, and I know, and even though you're a toy manufacturer and we're a book manufacturer, we are branching out into toys in our book shops, and we think there would be confusion. And unfortunately, my client at this point had already produced 20,000 units. And we're talking, this is a big production. This box was like, 9 inches by, no, it was 12 inches by 18 inches and about 4 inches deep. And it had all these plastic molded things inside and all the telescopes. But the packaging had to go onto a bonfire.
Huh.
because it had the trademark on it, and they had been denied the trademark, so they couldn't use it. They managed to repackage elements of the toy separately with different names. They didn't use the word Wily in the title. But that really hit them hard. I have even worse horror stories to tell, but it wasn't so much of a trademark thing as there was this big national campaign that was going to be done by this one group to encourage tourism, and specifically a travel plan they had for New York City. So there's this big travel poster. This travel, and I mean big, this travel poster was about I would say about 2 feet by 3 feet. It was huge. It was going to be, something large to put up in back in the day when they actually still had travel studios where you would go to a travel agent and you would plan how you would you'd have the agent do everything, right? Because they didn't have the internet back then, so you go to a travel agency. These were going to go up in travel agencies' boxes, and it was the main part of it was this beautiful nighttime shot of New York City with the skyscrapers. And then the text, New York, was in these huge, large letters, slightly faded out from, from the photograph, so that you would see the letters in the overall composition and the image. But, they would have a tint to them, or the frame, the night shot around them would be darker. And I can't imagine how many sets of eyes this went through. This went through the designers, the typesetter's eyes. This went through the designer's eyes. This went through the client eyes. And these projects are so big, you have multiple people signing off at every step of the way. You just can't do it otherwise. So they're doing the press run, and they're loading up all these posters onto the pallets. And one of the printers picks up a tearaway because, not everything comes across smoothly on the printing room floor. You get things that get just tossed to the ground. And one of the printers pulls this thing up, takes one look at it, and just starts laughing his ass off. And a cold shiver goes down the designer's back, because he knows that this guy is seeing something that no one else is seeing. And because this is not meant to be a gag poster, this is meant to be a thing. So he goes over to the guy and says, "What do you see that's funny?" And the guy's saying, "You're kidding me, right?" The guy goes, "No." Says, "Look, read what this says." And the guy says, "New York." And says, "No, you're blind if that's what it reads. It didn't read New York, it read Jew York. So instead of where there should have been a big old N, there was a big old J. And that, and I think it was a press run of 200,000.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Straight. They didn't even trust it to the dump. They hired a shredder company to come right out to the place and just start shredding it out. They didn't want any of these things to exist.
It's 5:30.
And on that lovely little story, gentlemen, I'm glad we were able to do it this week, even though my client canceled on me. I look forward to doing it with you again next week.
Okay. Well, you all have a good one then.
If you would like to participate in Epic Sketch Time, please go to the link in the description below and add yourself to the mailing list. You will get a notification the day before, and also you can contact me on Twitter at Monlux, and I will put you on the Twitter notification that goes out that morning. Bye, Patrick. Bye, Bill.
Bye, Mark. Bye,